Pidgeys in the deck. It's a 2-1-2 Pidgeot line, a 2-1-1 Duskmar line. Nothing too devastating in that instance. The fighting energy for Mateusz there is just a one-of in the deck. And Cornerstone Ogerpon is actually an option that you can look towards in this matchup at times. Because of course, the Terrestrial Charizard EX does have an ability. That could be a walling option that Mateusz looks to utilize, but in this game number 1 may not be able to attack with it until they're able to access some prize cards.
Well, the players flip over their actives. Junior going first here in our top 8, as these players will be anticipating a tough game ahead, but that does not look like the start you want, as Junior with the Cleffer in the active, attaching a fire energy. It's now for Mateusz, a Duskull in the active. I apologize, now for Mateusz to try and set up as best possible.
Mateusz does not play anything like Budju in the deck, so can't try and launch an annoying disruption attack straight away. That's something you always try and pounce on when your opponent has that weak turn 1, doesn't have access to basics, try and shut them down with item lock is normally one thing you look to prioritize. So instead, Mateusz can focus on his own board here. With that turn 1 Arven, is likely going to try and find access to that Buddy Pop-in. Does have access to Secret Box in this list as well, so it's not going to be the unfair stamp we saw in the previous top 8 match. Does have Turbo Energize in addition to TM Evolution, so has a couple avenues available to themselves based on what their hand's looking like. Let's have a first peek here. I saw Professor's research for next turn, I saw Nest Ball. So I feel like the Secret Box is a possibility to go for early if you're eyeing up a turn 2 research anyway. And it means you have access to not only Buddy Pop-in, but also access to more options on the next turn.
Yeah, just price checking here, making sure everything is available, all the options are there. But in this situation, you have a bit more time than you might think. You might take a different line based off of your opponent having a slower start. We mentioned in the previous game about players forcing their opponents to go first and allowing you to set up where they might have a slower start. Is that exactly the moment right now that we're witnessing? Is this going to be a tough one for Junio to come back with this slow start?
I love this opening from Mateusz. Opting not to go for Secret Box, not putting an Artisan down. You don't want to give your opponent any help because they've had a weak start. So let's just evolve up into double End Zoroark and put ourselves in the best case scenario. Asking Junio, do they have access to any supporter cards? It does look like they're holding on to Iono. They also have Chi-Yu as the only other basic they have in the hand right now. Chi-Yu hitting the board will be, by the looks of things, a fresh 6 cards from Iono. Junio looking for a lot of help here. Needs to start finding some Buddy Pop-in.
We've seen the TM Evolution, something we're very familiar with across many archetypes in the format right now. But TM Energize, when might Mateusz use that over the TM Evolution?
Sometimes trying to get the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon in the mix earlier is something you look to do, to be fair, because it will be a go-to option in a number of matchups. Equally, we know how powerful Monkey Dory is, and there's 3 copies of Monkey Dory in Mateusz's list, so sometimes getting an energy attachment onto a Zoroark as well as one onto a Monkey Dory can be a big deal, especially because it's another means of which you can play around Budgie.
And Junior just getting the Buddy Pop in there, able to set up this turn. Will be going onto his second turn now, so not able to get into any attackers at this stage, but does allow the stability to begin happening. On the other side, Mateusz will be happy with the sight of the first turn going so well for him. But one question here I've got for you is there's no Darmanitan in this End Zoroark list. We mentioned it before. The End Zoroarks at this event have been successful, opting to remove it. This moment now is one of those moments where it would have been a little bit more effective. Why do you think players have cut it out of their deck?
It's a strange one, really. The Darmanitan's hard to find. You always need to draw excellently to weave it in very quickly. You're going to have to try and copy it with an End Zoroark, so you have to get multiple Stage 1 Pokemon online. The Darumaka has 80 hit points as well, so it doesn't weave in so nicely with the Buddy Pop-in. You need a lot to go right to make it happen. Junior going to get 1 Charmander developed, 1 Pidgey developed, and is also going to retreat into the grasping draw from Cleffer here. So he's hoping to dodge some early gusting effects. But like you said, Mike, with Darmanitan in the list, you can capitalize on weaker starts from your opponent. But in this case, Mateusz is just trying to have some different tech Pokemon and be more streamlined, I think.
Well, the Secret Box drawn there, that could be a useful asset for a powerful turn. Wanting to try and get as much energy in play as possible to allow sustained pressure throughout the game. And that singular Charmander right now will definitely be part of Mateusz's thinking for the turn. How possible is it for it to be this turn? We'll have to see, as there is acceleration quite conveniently in End Zoroark through that End's PP up.
1 copy in the list as well, but that could be found with the Secret Box. You could Secret Box for Boss's Orders and End's PP up here. We've just traded away a Darkness Energy. It might all be coming together here, Mike, for an early gusting approach. There's a strange back and forth that Mateusz has to dance around with in this matchup, because, of course, he needs to start taking these prize cards, but there's a point in which the Charizard becomes very problematic in that you can't knock it out cleanly, and they can easily knock out your End Zoroark back to back to back, especially when there's the likes of Dust Noir and Maximum Belt in the list, that you're going to have to try and stay out of range of a Charizard, or at least set up a number of knockouts so that Zoroark doesn't really allow the Charizard player to get carried away with the game and just sort of take a 4-prize sweep unchallenged.
There we go, the energy onto that End Zoroark. The Boss's Order is actually on the Pidgey this time.
Yeah.
Take away the consistency and not the attackers, and that's going to be copying the End's Reshiram on the bench, using that Virtuous Flame to get a knockout Pidgey gone and just a single Charmander in play. It's going to be hard to set that one up in the next turn.
Junior's prized his second Pidgey as well, so that's going to be locking the option of Pidgeot for a long time in this game. The Pidgey chilling out in the top of those prize cards. Mateusz really taking the opportunity to slow down the Charizard deck knowing it's so vital to have the access to quick search turn by turn, you can already tell that Mateus has thought through the matchup and how he can navigate it, because it's putting Junior right on the back foot here.
Quite a simple game plan for Zoroark a lot of the time, just swing with 170 damage. It's that consistency of the trade that allows you to set it up so often. And I think Mateus has always been a huge fan of, yes, I play these unusual archetypes, but typically opting for so much consistency among them. A huge fan of trekking shoes back in the day and those kinds of cards that allowed you to play your game as often as possible. And Zoroark, definitely one of the best in the format right now to keep playing the game.
It feels like every deck in the format has to justify why they're not playing Secret Box, because it's such a versatile A-spec card that can give you additional outs just to play the game, but also can construct your deck in a completely different way and have lots of these one-offs, which Mateus is choosing to do, knowing that Arven can find the box that can find all of these one-offs as and when you need it. And in that case, piecing together PP up plus Boss's Orders was a huge combo.
Well, we have got another top 8 going on at the same time as this right now. Irvind versus Riley. Riley won game 1, but Irvind tied it up in game 2, so we'll see how that concludes and let you know as the result comes through. But for now, Mateus and Junior, our last streamed top 8 game to see who makes it through to top 4. And it will be the unusual archetypes, the breakthrough archetypes of the event, Charizard EX versus Zoroark, trying to decide which of them has earned their spot in that top 8.
Junior's doing his best to reduce his hand size here, has got a Charmeleon, also attaching to a Charmander on the bench, just so they can grasp up a few more cards here. It's a strange situation with Charizard where, low-key, you're quite happy to just allow the Zoroark to take a few prize cards. It sets up the Charizard to just be an absolute ridiculous beat stick. So even though you're just taking it slow, this could still be your best way to win, and just allowing Mateus to just churn through some prizes. That
ends Reshiram with a 2 retreat crossed in the active. Something we see often in the format now, gusting up 2 retreat cost Pokemon. But thankfully, there's an air balloon in the format. But not thankfully, Mateus has attached that already to the Monkey Dory, so unable to get a hold of that. And I believe the switch was in the prize cards earlier on. So the options limited for Mateus and may need to attach some energy here and manually retreat.
Yeah, there's just the one copy of the Professor Turris scenario as well, and that's not ideal. You don't really want to punch into this Cleffer too much. Again, it's this sort of ticking clock that Charizard's putting you on. It feels unintuitive to go too far ahead in prizes, but it's so easy for Charizard to swing a board state when the Zoroark is only hitting 170 a turn. Mateus may even look to use the likes of Scratch on an Zorua at some point, you know, trying to at least force more outs from Junior. As it is, has evolved up into another Zorua, into Zoroark. We'll be constantly thinning the deck. That's one of the benefits of trade, is that not only are you getting to see more cards, you're also throwing away cards that have sort of lost their usefulness, as we do see the Professor Turo here, picking up the Reshiram, moving out of the active. We've gone into the Air Balloon Monkey Dory immediately, then retreating into Zoroark. We're re-establishing the Reshiram. Taking 2 prizes. Yeah, it's just going to be the pass. I think pass is definitely correct here. If you take a knockout, it puts Charizard into 240 damage range, which is a max belt away from just churning through prize cards. Mateus has identified that beautifully here, and forcing Junior to find a stage 2 in addition to some of these Curse Blasters.
Well, we alluded to this match being a fascinating one at the start and how they'd have to navigate it.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. How often do we see a powered-up attacker in the active spot ready to swing? In this case, Mateus opting to pass, a rare sight, but one that has been thoroughly thought out. A player who is very familiar with taking the long route, as previously an item lock connoisseur would take many turns before finally securing the victory at the end. And that Charizard EX coming into play is now able to attack. But as you mentioned, do you want to be attacking into these Zoroark without them returning a huge attack back? And that's why that Charizard Burning Darkness is so powerful. It gets more strong as the game goes on. Yeah. But on this occasion, we'll only be able to knock out the Reshiram.
Honestly, I would have preferred Junior to just keep sitting back and grasping drawing until they were able to find Dusclops, Dusknoir, second Charmeleon, like these sorts of things. You can just, or I guess hold rare candy pieces and whatnot. Just knowing that you're both happy to pass into each other, and Charizard's actually better off for it, I think, a lot of the time. Because Mateus can weave in Inos, and with no engine Pokemon to speak of, you're going to be in this strange situation where you don't always have it all. And then now the Zoroark can punch into the Charizard, and it's actually really effective.
Yeah, and that's where you look back at the Pidgeot not being available and how important that quick search is to allow Charizard EX to work. Mateus recognizing that early on. Both of them with 5 prize cards remaining, so things like Counter Catcher are not available. But it will be that swing into the active Charizard that opens up a route for Mateus at this moment.
Because you knew Mateus wasn't going to take a single prize knockout, but now he can get relevant damage into play. So Junior, by going down this route with Counter Catcher, has actually helped out a lot. I would prefer to keep grasping if it was me.
Well, that's part of the challenge of this matchup for both these players. A lot of pressure on the line because of the fact we're in our top 8 of the World Championship, but also a lack of familiarity with the matchup. Both of these guys will have tested against the top decks, but neither of them really testing against each other, as Zoroark does 170 damage into that active Charizard EX, which is now wondering if it's safe going into the next turn.
One thing is, when your Charizard's damaged, you can just swing in. It doesn't matter that Powerful Rage can take a huge knockout. You're already in 2-shot range. So you can try and look to two-shot the first end Zoroark, then you're still forcing Mateus into this. Well, no, instead we're going to take another single prize knockout. This gets you back onto the even prize map, knowing that you can still win in 2 Zoroark knockouts. Junior's still really laying this trap, to be fair. Mateus in this strange spot of like, I take out this Charizard. Doesn't take much for Junior, who hasn't played any rare candy yet, plays 3 in the deck. Just build up 1 Charizard EX and can just sweep the board against me.
Well, now you've got the question of, can you get back the Ends Reshiram?
Yep,
you know,
another question.
Ends Zoroark can't attack without an attacker on the bench to copy, and Ends Reshiram is that attacker in this matchup. With it being taken out twice in a row, you're forcing Mateus to use all of those recovery resources, of which there is a Super Rod and a Night Stretcher, but only in a single count.
Yeah.
So to be able to recover that over and over again will be difficult, as there's only 2 Ends Reshiram in the deck.
We'll see more trading from Mateus, discarding their Wellspring Mask Ogre EX with one of those trades. Not looking like that's going to be a great option. I'm going to start recovering some cards here with the Super Rod, Mike, as you mentioned, and a couple of those Reshiram coming back. And actually, the Wellspring might be recycled in the end here. No, it's going to be the Pheasantipity EX as an option. I think Mateus trying to combine an INO with a KO is reasonable. There can be a situation where somehow Junior, from just the 4 cards, can't find Rare Candy Charizard, and then you can take out the lone Charmander in play. That's the best case scenario for Mateus.
I think we can also just look at how thin that deck is for Mateus. So early in the game, but thanks to that trade, thinning out resources you don't want, and that's why you play the recovery cards in the deck, like Power Pad, like Super Rod, as you can put them back in your deck and quite easily get back to them through a few draws. And it's going to be the INO and Boss going back in for Mateus.
Makes a lot of sense, especially if we're going to be playing an INO this turn. I didn't see if it was in the hand, because Mateus is just holding on to so many right now. You have to feel like they have access to it. To make that INO come together, then we have better access to see a Boss's orders from the INO. We still have 1 trade remaining, of course. So we can still try and dig towards INO if it's not in the hand just yet. There's Countercatcher, bringing up the Charmander. So in this case, we're just going to take the guaranteed single prize knockout, using the INO to make it difficult for Junior to find a Dusclops or a Maximum Belt to still try and stay out of range of this Burning Darkness.
With that early Pidgey knockout, every INO is going to get even more effective as Junior not able to reset it and put it back into play. And also another thing to look at here, something to note, is a lot of energy in play for Mateus.
Yeah.
So a tough position without the Turo anymore. Things could get stuck in the active, the Ends Reshiram, potential target there for that. So lots of avenues to worry about for both players, and that's where we expect to see these high-level players recognize unusual routes to victory. This has not gone the way any of us would have expected, watching along, both of them having to navigate different decisions, because neither of them falling for the trap that the deck often poses in front of them. That Charizard EX now in play has damage on it. None of the End Zoroark have been damaged, so Junior recognizing not to give away that powerful Rage attack return.
Arven found, Mike, and I think that means if we're not pulling from the deck, it means it's already in the hand, the Maximum Belt. So we can grab Buddy Buddy Poffin. That means we get a backup Charmander here, knowing that your heavily damaged Charizard is likely going to be knocked out. But it sets you up still pretty nicely. Maximum Belt taking 2. You get a Charmander down. You're a bit at risk at a big INO. You have no board space for a Pheasantipity EX or anything like that. You're really just hoping that you have to expect Mateus to take the response KO, go down to 2 prize cards themselves, throw an INO in the mix. That's the best play they have. And then Junior's just hoping that from a 2-card hand, he'll be able to find a Charizard that would win him the game.
Fascinating how this is playing out right now, Joe.
It feels like it's favored for Mateus, but there's always a means that Junior can get there. Going to throw the TM Evolution away, essentially. Also do the same for the Air Balloon. We're just going to be grasping up here. Junior not happy with that state of affairs, not saying that they're going to be in a good spot after that approach. Instead of allowing Mateus into this spot where there's a potential to gust, but then you'd be in charge of the INO, really. That's what Junior's trying to do here. Not falling for the trap of Mateus, having access to INO. It's too risky to try and look for a candy combination. There's Boss's orders on Charmander.
Wow.
Taking the single prize knockout, instantly knowing what he wants to do here.
Well, neither player looking to rush ahead at this point. The damage output now for the Charizard EX is more than enough to get the End Zoroark with the Maximum Belt. Just 1 more knockout would allow for a Charizard EX to take a knockout, but without the ability to reset up another Charizard EX, Junior just not comfortable putting that damaged one in the active spot. And this is great recognition from Mateus. The board is locked by having so many Pokemon in play, and it does just mean the constant replacement of Charmander can be taken away.
And now Junior has to do the thing he didn't want to last turn. He grasped because he didn't want to put himself in this spot, but now it feels like he'll be using a Super Rod, reloading a Charmander, taking a knockout with Charizard because he's running out of turns to avoid it at this stage, and then he'll be looking to try and find Rare Candy Charizard. But he knows that Mateus is so likely to use INO against him that he'd only be looking at 2 cards here.
And even having to use that grasping draw, because you don't have the Pidgeot EX to be able to find the cards you want, so you have to keep that hand size as big as possible. And you see how thin the deck is for Mateus now. All of the resources he doesn't want to see are gone, and everything he wants to see is in play. Everything powered up and ready to go. And it is the question of what route do you take at this stage? The Charizard EX has a lot to ask, and the Dusknoirs are not even that viable because if you give away prize cards, you're putting Mateus 1 knockout away from winning the game.
Yeah, they're a complete non-factor at this stage. Mateus with triple Zoroark developed is looking pretty good, and look how thick the deck is still for Junior. If you get Ino'd, it's so unlikely that you find Rare Candy Charizard. It's really, really unlikely.
Getting that Buddy Poffin off the Arven. All the tools have been taken from the deck.
The last thing we could attempt is just re-establish another Charmander and Grasp one more time, knowing that you can Rare Candy into the other Charizard next turn, even if there is a boss's orders. Because there's 3 prize cards still from Mateus, that if they spend the boss now, a Charizard could still run over the board and take the final 4.
I mean, this is the point where you wonder what's the counts in your opponent's deck. When you're playing something you're familiar with, you can often guess, oh, they must play 3 boss, they must play 2. On this occasion, you see Mateus play a boss and a Power Pad, and you're starting to question, what is the count? How would I know? And we're quite lucky we get to sit here knowing the answer.
I can tell you.
But for Junior at this moment, he's looking across and going, can't have much more Gust, can you? Surely not.
I feel like Junior will continue to Grasp here. It feels just too risky to attempt to find a Rare Candy combo. I think it might just be another Grasp, honestly. There's the maximum belt in the hand. There's always the opportunity here to take the KO, but you're just in the helter-skelter of Ino then. Like, sure, you could hit it, but you're not very likely to. There's maximum belt committed, though.
I mean, everyone at home is very familiar with Charizard EX's ability to take knockouts. We've seen it so strong throughout the last year and a half. Came out in Obsidian Flames, and early on was one of the leading archetypes, partly due to its ability to win against Gardevoir. That type advantage, very useful, but the combination with Pidgeot EX allowed it to be so consistent. Without the Pidgeot EX, there is no safety going forward, and that knockout may put him in a tough position. A swing into the end Zoroark opens up the trap for Mateus.
Mateus has a very simple goal. Find Ino. Play Ino. Hope that Junior can't find Rare Candy Charizard. It's that simple. Mateus has the knockout on board already developed. This Charizard has been heavily damaged. Can be finished off. We're going to look at the bottom of our deck.
A boss in there.
There's a boss's orders. There's a Night Stretcher and an Energy Switch. The final few cards. We're committing a Turbo Energize. We're attaching to our backup and Zoroark, and there it is. The Ino has been held in the hand for a number of turns. Mateus has to be feeling good about the situation, but there's no guarantees that he's safe here, Mike. There's still some dangerous draws from Junior. The only hope is that it's a combo draw that needs to be found. We're retreating into end Zoroark. Mateus copying, once again, that Virtuous Flame. Also just going to make sure there's no liabilities of high retreat cost here. He's putting himself in this fantastic position. Junior, what's in that hand?
Do you have it? Is the Rare Candy Charizard there? Are you able to get it? There's an Artisan. I don't think that's it. And that's going to be game. Mateus taking game 1 here of our top 8 match at the Anaheim World Championship. Looking to put their spot in the history books with an innovative archetype. End Zoroark, the unknown factor in the top 8 here. 1 already out, but Mateus looking to carry it all the way to the final.
A remarkable cat and mouse there from Mateus. Using boss again, making sure that you're not letting a single Charizard run over the board. It's so easy for that to happen. Junior getting very quick to weave in those Duskull, filling up those board slots. Ended up coming back to be a real nuisance for him, because as Mateus was looking to take these individual 1-prize knockouts, it made those Duskull sort of rot in play. They weren't really getting much done. And if Junior was sat there with the Pheasantipity EX on the board, he'd have been feeling pretty good about finding a Rare Candy combo.
Exactly, and here's the moments we saw. It was that navigation around the Charizard EX that allowed Mateus to take the victory, getting rid of the Pidgey early on, and it was never able to return for Junior. But those knockouts on the end, Reshiram, tested Mateus' ability to set up. But when you're trading so many cards into your hand, you're always able to find the solution, and it was the combination of 2 of our most powerful supporters, Ino and Boss, that kept Mateus completing the game plan from start to finish.
And it was excellent execution in this game number 1 to play around that Charizard for so long. Junior also knew the assignment, trying to force the most out of Mateus, but it just felt like the way he went about those opening turns with the double Duskull was a bit problematic. Also bear in mind that the prizes weren't helping. There was one of those Charmeleon in the prize cards, also one of those Pidgey. So as soon as Mateus took out one of them, there was never another opportunity to grab a Pidgeot EX, and that also played a massive factor in that game.
I imagine many of you at home counted out end Zoroark. I certainly did. I've never actually built the decks. I didn't think it was good enough. But on this occasion, you can see why these top players have decided to play it, and I've got some insight for you. He's not the only one. We've seen another one in top 8 and across other age divisions, some end Zoroark doing very well in the top 8, and it is that navigation through the matchup that makes it so special. It's really difficult for you as a player to recognize these lines when you can't see the way it breaks down the board, and that's something Mateus has always factored into every deck he's built. How can I completely break down the board to put me in a winning position in those final turns?
Especially when you can thin that deck down to a point of confidence, knowing that you have access to your entire deck, essentially. It means you have complete control of that end game in how you weave in those supporter cards. There was a very genuine risk that Junior would have been 1-0 up here if he had just found the right combination of cards, but Mateus gave himself the best opportunity in game number 1 in a very difficult matchup. And here we are getting into game number 2 of our top 8. Mateus kicking things off with an Enzarua, and also has a Buddy Poffin to boot. Not too shabby.
Yeah, the perfect card you want to see when you're going first in these evolving decks, allows you to set up so much of what you need. And the first prize check here will pose some issues. You know, the Super Rod and the ends PP up, one-ofs in the deck, so if they are a vital part of the game plan at any moment, could be a factor, but otherwise the other cards in the prizes are in plentiful counts and should be a non-issue for Mateusz at this point. Only 3 end Zoroark were put into play last game, and I assume that will be the general strategy in most matchups.
Yeah, you got to think that's the usual route. You need to have space for that ends Reshiram. Trying to move in Monkey Dory, Descendipity, these are all decent cards for you. One interesting adaptation was that in game number 1, Mateusz didn't have access to that fighting energy, so it became a bit of a non-factor, that Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX, but it could be a Pokemon that he looks to weave in, especially because he's playing those Turbo Energize in his list.
And with the knowledge of what his opponent's deck contains,
yeah.
A card that completely walls out many archetypes, but only if you're aware of what's available, and throughout that game would have been taking notes on what was there. And just the 3 end Zorua coming out in this first turn. Junior opting to go second, what we often see in many of these evolving decks, just to try and set up as best possible and utilize those supporters. An energy attachment to finish off, and it will be over to Junior to set up strong.
Well, there's good news and bad news here for Junior. The good news is there's a Buddy Poffin, but the bad news is he's about to realize that he's prized his A-spec, the Maximum Belt, which is going to be a really crucial damage-modifying card. We saw that Mateusz wants to get a little bit quirky with how he takes his prizes. He doesn't want to walk into a big Burning Darkness, and Maximum Belt is a great means of Junior just forcing his way through the Zoroark EX and ignoring the powerful Rage from Ends Reshiram. So that's another really awkward prize card. We also saw the Pidgey, again, in the very same spot, that top right of the prizes. Going to be the same situation where Mateusz might look to take out the only Pidgey that he has access to.
2 Charmander down, a Duskull in the active again, and the attachment to the Duskull to allow for that retreat. We do see the Rare Candy, the Artisan, some useful cards there, but is that a lack of supporter in the first hand there?
Could well be. Oh, no, there isn't Ino as well, so we can see a fresh 6 here before committing to our Artisan. Feels like we want to try and get a Pidgey developed, no doubt, but keeping it from the other side of these 6 cards definitely makes sense. Also, the energy attachment on Duskull does give us the opportunity to draw into TM Evolution. Doesn't look like we got that just yet. It also gives us the option to retreat into Cleffa, which has been found from the new hand. Also an Ultra Ball as well, I believe, so we could go low and then grasp up a bunch of cards. Here comes the Artisan now, looking for a Pidgey, no doubt.
That Artisan, a key card in many decks, but one that also gives your opponent access to their non-rulebooks Pokemon. Artisan allowing you to get a Pokemon with no rulebox on it into play, onto the bench directly. And many decks, not only will they have their main attackers and support Pokemon that can be got out with Artisan, but even things like Monkey Dory, knowing that that's in play, you can avoid putting them into play until the exact moment. So it can be a nice little bit of utility as Cleffa does go to the active, and that grasping draw attack, which was so key in the last game for Junior to stay in it, has kicked things off for him in this one.
It's a great Pokemon to end your turn on. Trying to find that Rare Candy plus Ultra Ball combination for the following turn is always handy. There's the first evolution into End Zoroark EX in the active position. Going to be throwing away one of those Monkey Dory. Access to the Turbo Energize is kind of intriguing here as an option. There's also an Ultra Ball, so we can continue to use trade this turn if we would like.
Wonder if that Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon's going to be coming into play here. You can see lining it up a completely different strategy for this matchup. Going to be taken on by Mateusz. Just getting the energy out from the TM Energize and going to be setting it up, ready to swing for the rest of the game. The only attacker on the other side that will be able to attack into that is that Chi-Yu, but you do have to think about the Dust Noir too.
Yeah, it's an interesting option in the deck, in that it's not a checkmate, that it can be in other situations and other matchups. But like you said, it forces Junior down this strange situation of being forced to put Chi-Yu into play, being forced to Curse Blast a bunch, and that's going to completely change the dynamic of this game.
Also using just that Charmeleon too, not just there to evolve into the Charizard, can be used to attack, but it's forcing resources out of the opponent, and that is exactly why it is featured in this deck. Well, more so for the Golden Go. I'm sure it was a great card to allow Mateusz to get to this stage and beat all the Golden Goes along the way, but Charizard notably has a lot of abilities. But the Dust Noir, as it's an ability itself that is putting the damage into play, is not damage from an attack, so we'll be able to get through the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon's Cornerstone stance. And the other side, Junior now having to step up stably. And because of the way this matchup goes, a bit of cat and mouse back and forth, there is the ability to go a bit slower compared to other matchups.
Yeah, and I think slow actually helps both decks out a little bit, to be fair. They both get to initiate their strategy. They both get to try and work towards key pieces, whether it's quick search, accumulating crucial one-of cards, or trade, just allowing you to have this huge hand size. So I think both players are quite happy to try and go slow because they still have so many options. I think Junior's still the most happy in this case because they can get through the Cornerstone if they have to. And also, if Mateusz is going to get attacking with Demolish at any time, he can then take advantage of the prize cards taken, and the Charizard can still run away with the game. Junior has a few puzzles to go through here. Mateusz, it's so interesting going a game up and then starting the second game with a completely different strategy. It's another concern for Junior. Unfamiliar territory once again, even though he's just faced this deck for 45 minutes, for half an hour or so.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty here of our top cut. You get to have that 75 minutes to really navigate through the matchup. You can play those slower game plans, knowing you're still going to get to a result and absorb all this information and now you get to apply it in game 2. Mateusz has changed the strategy here, and on the other side, Junior has got the Pidgeot EX in place, so the strategy completely changes for him too.
Charizard goes from a scary deck that can sometimes miss to an absolute threat as soon as the quick search comes online. Once during a turn, being able to search for any card and put it directly into your hand is so flexible that it allows Charizard to string together all sorts of combinations. Most of the time when you hear 3 stage 2s, you'd laugh at that concept. You think that's not going to be very competitive, but quick search makes it all come together.
Yeah, the original Pidgeot with quick search was played during the 2006 Worlds here in Anaheim, the first Worlds at Anaheim. So great to see that coming back and showing exactly why that quick search ability is so powerful. And it will be a TM evolution onto the Charmander and the Duskull. I must say, I like the way he's gestured them forward on the bench. I've not seen that before. That's a nice bit of communication.
We love to see it.
And now the other way. We were interested through that first game of how the strategy was going to go. And it's going to be completely different here, as it looks like another TM evolution back the other side. A slow setup style from both players.
Technical machine, into technical machine, into technical machine. Players have utilized these tool cards excellently throughout their run into this top cut in the Masters Division. Mateusz is putting 6 prize cards worth of Pokemon that aren't Cornerstone into play, which is worth noting. So Junior might now try to ignore the Cornerstone. But of course, Mateusz does have means of picking up Pokemon out of play. So it might put Junior in this strange situation of going down one direction, and then Mateusz can sort of take that option away later on in the game.
This is where we look back at that A-Spec, the maximum belt being prized. Junior would be able to use 2 Curse Blasts to put himself in range of knockouts with the A-Spec, but cannot do that now, so cannot rely on getting the prize cards in his favor under his terms. Will rely on Mateusz to take knockouts at this stage to one-hit knockout and end Zoroark with the Charizard.
Here comes the first Infernal Rain then. Charizard EX coming into play. As soon as it does, you can search your deck for up to 3 fire energy and attach them. Such a flexible option, and it means that as soon as you find the Pokemon, the energy come running, powers itself up, of course, most crucially. That's a fantastic option. Junior's board is already substantially better than it was in that first game. Finally access to quick search. Now not only has a Charizard, but also some great stage 1s in the back. We can start seeing some fireworks, of course, Mike, with Curse Blast as well. Finding a Dusknoir this turn would give us an easy way to knock out the active end Zoroark. Got to feel like that's decent for Junior. He's going to use an Ino here before opting to quick search. Want to see the outs here. Whatever he sees from these 6 cards could end up being pieces towards Dusknoir anyway, so keeping the option for quick search open.
Yeah, and the 3 bosses orders in Junior's deck, a typical target for that quick search to be able to find a way to get around the active Pokemon, especially when you've got a walling Pokemon like that Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX with the Cornerstone stance. So this game looking way more in favor of Junior than last time, just thanks to that setup. It just shows you how pivotal that Pidgeot EX really was
100%.
in game 1. When that Pidgey was taken down by Mateusz, it completely slowed down the ability for Junior to set up. Every turn he's getting a card he absolutely wants, and consequently he can synergize that with the other cards in hand to set up completely.
We have so many options now. We have access to quick search. If there's a Night Stretcher in the hand, we could even be Curse Blasting twice into the Cornerstone and just dealing with it and then grasping up again. Like, you're happy with that situation as well. Junior doesn't even have to take out the active. You can still look to deal with the Cornerstone and then just progress from there.
There's that Dusknoir.
Feels like it's definitely part of the strategy. It could go into the active, then you have an easy Burning Darkness KO. If we're trying to respect the Cornerstone, we could also blast into that. Now it's quick search. If there's Rare Candy in the hand, I do love the option of double Curse Blast. Or if there's the Night Stretcher, you could do a similar thing. The Super Rod is showing to me that he's going to try and reload these Ghost-type Pokemon. You get multiple pops in a couple of turns.
At what point do the Curse Blast need to be saved for that Ogerpon versus being used to take out the end Zoroark? That's the question.
Well, this will be, so this is a big sign that we're just happy to take out the Zoroark, but with the Super Rod, we're still trying to keep enough of them in the back so we can deal with the Cornerstone if need be.
100%. Typically, the Charizard EX deck likes to go behind throughout its time, but with the Dusknoir, it allows you to initiate, and you can see exactly that happening right here. Using that Artisan put in play earlier on to reset the Duskull onto the bench and continue that pressure that they provide. One of the only ways to deal with the Cornerstone Ogerpon, and on this occasion, we'll be sitting there looking to come up next turn, but the end Zoroark in the active will be taken out through a Charizard EX. We are finally seeing the Charizard EX put the aggression on. No trap in place here for Mateusz, and it will just be now asking the questions. What can you do in this scenario after I take out your main attacker?
Mateusz is asking some questions himself, though, because this Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon is a real nuisance to deal with for Junior. It does force more and more of these Dusknoir to be pushed through. Charmeleon has 3 energy in the attack cost, so can't really be powered up anytime soon. The Chi-Yu is only really effective when Mateusz opts to take knockouts, and that's not looking likely over the next couple of turns. Mateusz does have a lot of options, though. He has Secret Box available in this hand. Does have access already to the End's PP up. There's no Darkness Energy in the discard pile just yet, but that's easily done, especially after a couple trade. That's why we're starting this turn. Gonna see some more options before committing down any individual avenue here.
Those Buddy Poffin, so good in the early turns, and in this deck, they don't clog up your deck at the end because you get rid of them with every discard, and now we're going to be asking the question of what is the attacking option here? That Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon is great at walling, but Demolish just not doing enough damage. 140 is very limited when it comes to a big Stage 2 deck like Charizard EX.
Yeah, it's this really awkward situation where you know that the two Duskull are so threatening to you, but you can't just chase them with the Cornerstone because it's then easy for Junior to Artisan out Chi-Yu, quick search for Charizard, still find a means towards the other Curse Blast into the Chi-Yu response. So Mitesh is in this weird position where no play feels amazing. It is going to be Arven for Counter Catcher though. Perhaps trying to slowly attack into a Pidgeot could be an option, knowing that quick search is just so devastating. Trying to demolish it over a couple of turns. Taking out Charmeleon is interesting. It still helps you play around Chi-Yu because it can't be powered up all in one turn. Again, limit on how many Charizard your opponent has access to is one line of play that allowed Mitesh into the game in that game number 1.
Okay, so we have the Counter Catcher now, that Pidgeot. A prime target here, the Air Balloon allowing the free retreat. And 140 damage is exactly half of Pidgeot EX. Ignores the resistance as well, thanks to the secondary effect of Demolish. And it will be Mateus just setting up Zoroarks on the bench with a bit of energy.
Yeah, I prefer... it looked like Mateus was going to commit Turbo Energize, but I think holding it for trade fodder is always the best approach. And putting this Pidgeot EX in range definitely makes a lot of sense. Junior, what's the pickup? Was that Dusknoir? Was it Dusclops? Looks like it's just the Clops here. If we can string together Dusknoir, it's obviously going to be devastating. It would be the game. So,
yeah, that would be a crazy turn if possible. Actually, in the last game, missing the double Dusknoir to win the game was available there, but just didn't quite see it.
I don't think it was in the hand. I think, you know, it would have required 3 Red Candies, I think, and a Night Stretcher and a Dusknoir. Like, so
without
the
Pidgeot,
exactly,
it's so hard to do that. But that is the key to this matchup, is a double Dusknoir would be the way to win a lot of the time, as putting 130 damage per Curse Blast on the board is frequently putting you into a strong position.
Even Dusclops into boss here is really, really good. Sets up a Zoroark KO, and you can still look to Curse Blast later. Here is the boss's orders, bringing up the Zoroark. There is Dusclops. You know you can slowly deal with this Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon with the help of Chi-Yu and still a Duskull on the bench. Junior going down to just 2 prize cards and also putting Mitesh in this strange spot where they have to take their own Zoroark out of play next turn.
And taking away the draw engine was exactly what Mateus would not want to happen, losing the ability to find every card you need at every turn.
Yeah.
But it is a liability in play, as we see the maximum belt has been taken, can be utilized to take more damage onto the Cornerstone Ogerpon by another attacker, but on this occasion it would be a tough ask. There's a lot to do this turn, especially if that Pidgeot EX gets targeted down this turn.
Mateus has to ask himself, can lone Cornerstone just close the game here? If you use a Professor Turris now and pick up this Zoroark, can it be done? And Zorua coming onto this bench is absolutely safe. The single prize knockout really doesn't help Junior much. It is going to be the secret box. This will be the indication of what the supporter choice is. Boss's orders appealing to take out the Pidgeot or the Duskull, both really appealing options. But also that Professor Turris scenario is the safest way for you to not lose next turn.
I mean, even a Gust onto the Pidgeot EX plus an Iono might get you a few turns, as you've really asked a lot of questions last game off those few cards, and it looks like the Counter Catcher, the Artisan coming down mostly just because you want to get it out of the deck, and it's going to be an Arven there, so perhaps a supporter for turn in hand. And
well, there's the answer. Definitely not the Turris scenario then. You would be really vulnerable to the maximum belt, of course, but not much else you can do here. Maximum belt was taken from the prizes of Junior as well, let's not forget. Nestball for Pheasant Diff EX means Mateus is looking for a lot of combo pieces here. And just saying that Gust is going to be a huge problem. I can take away Quick Search and Iono and hope for the best.
Yeah, and this is what we mentioned before. You can go down the lone Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon route into lots of different decks, but this is not that deck. Too many options to worry about, so we'll instead be using it to take away options after a disruption. The Iono was in hand, and the Counter Catcher has been played onto that Pidgeot. We know how key that was last time. If you get rid of this Pidgeot EX with a 2-card hand, Junior's going to struggle to get going.
Dodge and Weave worked in game number 1. Mateus is trying to do the same thing again. Mateus set this damage on the previous turn, knowing that he was going to be going down even more prize cards. Here comes the flip the script. A bunch of supporters in Mateus' hand for next turn.
Options.
Certainly options. There's still the trade as well, don't forget. So a couple more cards coming in. Option of Sob still open to Mateus here. Interesting thinking about discarding an Iono. Wow. Discarding the Iono, opting to hold multiple boss's orders as superior supporters for later. Actually go into another Iono anyway, so still has access to that. And we're going to be knocking out this Pidgeot EX. Mateus goes down to 2 prize cards remaining. Junior easily can close this game. Can find a means to knock out this Zoroark with the Gust. There it is, boss's orders, bringing up the Zoroark off the top. And we're going to a game number 3, Mike. Burning Darkness pushing its way through an Zoroark very cleanly.
Don't need to worry about your quick search if it's in that hand. And it wasn't impossible in game 1 to find the combo pieces, and it was a lot more combo required. But when it's just a singular card you need to win, it's definitely more viable. And we did just get a little glimpse of another little inclusion from Mateusz's deck, that Wellspring Mask Ogerpon in the deck with no water energy, so could be an option in the next game. And it's certainly fair to say the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon was not enough of an answer this time to take down Junior, who played a remarkable game, using that Pidgeot EX to perfection throughout the game.
Let's have a little replay of how that game 2 panned out then. And as you said, Mike, the setup was just a stark contrast in that we got that really early quick search online into the TM evolution, getting us multiple stage 1 Pokemon developed. That gave us easy access towards the Charizard, combining it early on with a Dusknoir to take out the first Zoroark, then into the Dusclops to take out a Zoroark. And at that point in the game, you've been feeding your opponent prizes. Mateusz had to take quick search off the board. It was too dangerous to be kept around, meaning that Charizard is well in range to close out the game. And all it took was a boss's orders top deck. How many times have we said that, Mike?
That boss's orders top deck, yeah, the ramp up of the Burning Darkness, something you always have to think about with every deck, especially those with that higher HP range like Zoroark has. 280 HP early on is just enough to get away with a Charizard attack, but towards the end, 300 and 330 damage with those final 2 prize cards will always knock out an Zoroark, whether you got the maximum belt or not. So going into game 3 now of our top 8, we are looking to see which of these players make it to the semi-finals of the Anaheim World Championship. The 3rd time we've returned to this city to compete at the World Championship, and it will be one of these players trying to create history.
It's already been a phenomenal demonstration of both these players' prowess with their archetypes. It's been a cat and mouse game throughout, and now just one more game to complete. It's going to be Junior kicking things off, has the Cleffa opener straight into the Buddy Poffin. Has to be smiling at that one, as he will now have access to a couple of his lower hit point evolving Pokemon. Already looks like they're spying the Pidgey, in addition to a Charmander here. Looking at the prize cards, one of those 2 copies of Super Rod. We know how vital the Dusknoir package is. And that's a bit of a shame for him, as well as one of those boss's orders. A crucial card that allowed him to close out that game number 2. Ultimately not too painful, though.
Yeah, the Mist Energy, interestingly, the only out against the corner of Mateusz's Wellspring Mask Ogerpon. A definite inclusion for Charizard these days, especially with how much TM Devolution is out and about. Frequently put onto the Pidgeot EX to keep that quick search online, but can also be used on a Charizard EX if it is already ready to go and going to close out the game for you. But the Cleffa start, I mean, it has been the MVP really for Junior, the grasping draw in all the games. But as this is Junior's first turn, we'll just be passing over to Mateusz, who also has the Buddy Poffin.
I'm rubbing my hands, Mike, because we get to see a real game 3. Both players getting access to that Buddy Poffin means they're both likely to get a really decent setup. We're going to see both players navigate the game as best as possible, but already catastrophe for Mateusz with the secret box A-spec in the prize cards. It's usually such a vital piece, turning that Arven into all sorts of different avenues and trees and how you can get into things. That's going to be a bit of a problem for you. If Mateusz does still have access to Arven here, even just getting a TM evolution should end up allowing him to draw a bunch of cards, so it's not going to be so devastating, but it does hurt a lot of his avenues of play.
Yeah, we noticed actually in the first game opting to not take it early on, as this is one of the few decks that draws enough cards that later on in the game, Secret Box is viable. Many of the decks that play Secret Box have such small hand sizes in the late game, it's not really a viable option. So Mateusz will be sad to see it if it's required to set up fully, as it's such a key component of many of our top decks in the format. But the Zoroarks are back out and about, as we saw in all 3 games.
We do have Arven, in addition to that Artisan, like you mentioned. I think in this case it has to be the Earthen Vessel, because we're lacking energy. So the classic Earthen Vessel TM evolution combination will get access to a couple of early Zoroark EX.
I love the contingency in this deck. You've got an item to find energy and an item to find Pokemon, and you also have a TM to find Pokemon and a TM to find energy. On this occasion, it will be the item for the energy and the TM for the evolutions, as 2 Zoroark in play on that first turn for Mateusz. A solid start, and one that will be key to drawing cards next turn. Both players in a strong position now to follow their game plans.
Yeah, for Junior, the first question is, can we get rare candy into the Pidgeot? It was so vital in that game number 2. The deck is just completely different. When you have access to quick search, it becomes so consistent and ruthless at what it wants to do. I see access to Iono, but not Arven.
Dusclops?
We do see a Dusclops. We do see energy onto Cleffa, as well as the TM Technical Machine Evolution, and it is going to be an Iono here. So Junior keeping the option open to evolve up into Pidgeotto and Charmeleon, but there's still the possibility that we find rare candy from these fresh 6.
I mean, whenever you have a turn where you've got a solid turn pre-Iono, and then you play the Iono and see more cards, it's definitely a great position to be in. And, you know, with the modern Charizard decks, you're less reliant on rare candy thanks to this TM evolution. Knowing that Budu is all around the format, you have to be able to get around it, and rare candy being a crutch is a surefire way to not see your stage 2. So Pidgeotto in the deck too, and there is also those 2 Charmanders there, and it will be that TM Evolution, evolving a Pidgey and a Charmander, nicely gestured by Junyo's shove of the two evolving Pokemon.
Junyo gripping onto an Ultra Ball for next turn as well, which can unlock the Pidgeot. So the TM Evolution has been really handy for both players in this final game here. So the first trade from Mateusz. He has this window of opportunity to maybe find a gusting effect to deal with a Pidgeotto. Just one more trade to help him get there.
Oh, wow.
Here comes the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, though. So Turbo Energize could be the option instead here. Yeah, we're using INO. Get a fresh 6 cards, but not going down the aggressive route, not trying to hunt down boss's orders plus end Zoroark as any sort of play. Instead, going to try and just power up this Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, still backing this as the best way to win.
Yeah, it's interesting if you've watched these first 2 games here and you're trying to work out the matchup, as we all are, a very unfamiliar matchup. You might be thinking, hang on a minute, that Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon didn't work.
Yeah.
The game where you didn't play it, you won, but that was purely due to that ability to lock out the Pidgey. And without access to that option, Mateusz is opting to try and play it safer here and go for a strategy which tends to work into Charizard, which is walling it out with the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. And just a singular Dusclops in play might have encouraged that decision.
Is it a tough choice whether or not we evolve this active end Zoroark? It would give you access to another trade and more draw, but it does open up Junyo to have a nice Curse Blast knockout into a 2-prizer. Yeah, just going to stick with a Zorua and power up this Cornerstone instead, forcing possibly an extra piece out of Junyo with potential counter catchers.
Well, I asked you at the beginning of this game, Joe, why is that technical machine Turbo Energize in the deck? And you mentioned the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, and we've seen it be such a key part here, as that fighting energy is just a single copy in the deck, so hard to find unless you get it out with the Turbo Energize. On this occasion will be set up once again very similar to last game, but with a different board facing him down. And thanks to that TM Evolution previously from Junyo, able to just evolve straight into that Charizard and get swinging.
Yep, also the backup Charmeleon naturally coming into the hand from the fresh 6, given to him by Mateusz's INO. Very handy. The Infernal Rain will be plucking a couple more Fire Energy out of the deck for free. Part of the reason why Charizard has been such a mainstay in our metagame since it was released. Not sure if we had any access to Pidgeot EX just yet. That's one of the final things Junyo will still be hunting for this turn. Possibly has access to a supporter card to help him get there. Yep, does have INO. So no guarantees just yet, but a reasonable shot. Let's see if we can try and find the Stage 2 Pokemon. Again, the possibilities open up so much as soon as we access this Stage 2 Pokemon. Also the possibility of Fireworks with Curse Blast. There is the Pidgeot EX pickup, Mike. And you've got to be pleased with that one. I think there's also Ultra Ball in the hand as well, so there's a possibility of Curse Blast. We could quick search for Counter Catcher. We could Curse Blast into an end Zoroark and do the same thing again. Just set that up, knock it out with the Burning Darkness. In
our previous top 8, we saw how powerful the Dusknoir was in combination with Dragapult. Not the same way it's utilized here, but the fact that it increases the damage output of the Charizard EX is such a powerful tool. Being able to knock your own Pokemon out, something we've seen throughout the history of Pokemon, seen so many powerful archetypes. Something that's not intuitive to most is giving away prize cards is not normally the strategy. Here it will be as...
Super Rod taken as the quick search option. Looks like we're content just taking the single prize KO.
Okay.
Going to hold off on our Curse Blasters again. This now threatens the Cornerstone Ogerpon very effectively with the Dusclops and Duskull combination. Also with the Charmeleon on the bench, that if Mateusz tries to target one, there's always the option to steal Curse Blast and Chi-Yu. That could be brought out all in one turn by Infernal Rain. So again, Junyo creating this board position where he's not that afraid of the Cornerstone Ogerpon. He's threatening it on 2 counts, whether or not Mateusz tries to target down your ghost types or not. So just like he did in game number 2, put himself in this great position, and already it's head in hands for Mateusz. How can he get out of this position? The board state is just looking so strong for Junyo here.
We promised an interesting match, and you can see exactly why. These 2 decks have been brought in to counter the meta, but not to counter each other. They are trying to find a way to navigate the unusual circumstances of their opposition. And it is that ability to boss around targets, take out the Pidgeot, and that 140 damage into the Pidgeot EX seemed to be so perfect last game. But on this occasion, you're going to be worried about the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon being the target of a future knockout.
Yeah, Mateusz kind of just has to go through this. It was painful in that second game. Didn't work out the way he wanted, but at the end of the day, it was an INO. It could easily have paid off, and we could be saying it was a 2-0 victory. So you still got to execute the plan you attempt. Set up and deal with his Pidgeot slowly over a couple of turns. Force Junyo into this situation where they're using multiple Curse Blast. Try and find a way through this last Charizard. I think Junyo, with the correct quick searching here, could be putting himself into a great position, though.
One of the beauties of decks like this, with that quick search, you can tutor out any card you want, so it is really in control of the user how these turns pan out. We see a similar thing with Jewel Seeker and Noctowl. The best of our players able to create these high power turns, as now the quick search to be taking out a rare candy. There is an Ultra Ball in hand too, so maybe the double Dusknoir might be coming off here.
Wouldn't surprise me. Here we go. Looks like a couple Buddy Poppin is the discard from this Ultra Ball. You have to feel like Curse Blast is going to be looking devastating on this board. And there it is, Dusknoir coming into the hand. Mateusz not going to be happy about this situation right now. If there's access to double Dustoir, Junior's running away with this game. There we go. It's going to be the first Curse Blast here. You can then use Super Rod and Arven to recover and get access back to this Dustoir. Really brilliantly executed from Junior this turn. Great sequencing all round.
Yeah, that Curse Blast, 130 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon, but you do give them a prize card, as we just saw Mateusz taking the Turbo Energize technical machine. And now that Dusclops on the bench will be available to evolve this turn, as Junior has the ability to do so. It's really then, what is the turn after that? But with giving these prize cards away, you know, Junior's in a great position to be also able to knock out an Zoroark with a maximum belt on the Charizard EX, so could be having a 4-prize turn right here.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. The Arven's a huge, huge play. Making so much happen here. And the Charizard, you know, it's undamaged. What can Mateusz do to it?
Not much. I mean,
not much. Like, try and recover the Cornerstone and shove that again.
And once the Zoroark is in range of knockouts, you're really in a tough spot because you can't rely on getting damage on board and getting return knockouts with N's Reshiram's attack of Powerful Rage. And you can really see here, Mateusz in a tough old spot. I guess he could find a way to wall out with the Ogerpon again in the future. But there we go, there's another knockout, the Curse Blast from Dustoir. 2 of them back-to-back to knock out the walling Pokemon of Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. And the Zoroark must be promoted, as they are the only Pokemon in play. Now a Charizard EX doing 240 damage, plus 50 from that maximum belt A-Spec. A card we often don't see in many archetypes, but Charizard, the perfect user of it, and you can see exactly why. 4-prize turn for Junior, putting him 1 step away from top 4 here at the World Championship.
Mateusz going to take a look at those discarded cards to see if there's any ray of hope left. It was like Cornerstone, and just hope that Junior can't find another way to get through it would be your only play. Mateusz was debating whether or not to look to use the Night Stretcher on that previous turn. I think did end up playing it for a Darkness Energy, so it doesn't have easy access to that Pokemon again. Does have the Super Rod though.
Well, there we go. That Wellspring Mask Ogerpon hasn't seen any cards yet in this match from Junior that can deal with it. We know there is one solution, and that's that Mist Energy. But once that's committed to a Pokemon, another one can be brought up. So an interesting scenario. Is Deck Out even viable with how many cards have been drawn with Zoroark? Or is that just creating the time needed? There's so many things now to navigate, and we know Mateusz is a superb player at navigating these unusual win conditions. Will it be possible this turn?
There is Nest Ball, so it does have access to the Pokemon just shuffled in. It's going to be the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX. Corner, so that Sob attack, I should say. Locking a Pokemon into place, denying that retreat. It's going to be Arven as well. Junior has access to Quick Search next turn and the hand that he's holding on to. Not much in the way of disruption from Mateusz here. Will retreat into the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon. And has Counter Catcher onto Pidgeot EX. Turn attachment of Darkness Energy. Also the N's PP up coming down onto the Zoroark on the bench. This is the only defense Mateusz has access to right now. Trying to buy time, just a little prod of 20. Coming over to Junior. Wow, is there a way that we can close the game here, or is it just going to be Mist Energy Pass? Already that puts a huge headache and huge pressure on Mateusz. Well,
the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX featuring in many decks in the current format. We've seen it included in Flareon EX at this event, as well as many of those Terra archetypes utilizing the Sparkling Crystal, but never have we really seen it included in a deck without the ability to use Torrential Pump. We often see the Maractus using Corner in many of those situations, but Mateusz recognizing the Wellspring as a good option. Maybe that added HP, the 210 HP, a great way to do so, and now has that Pidgeot EX locked in the active spot. We mentioned the only way to get around this is to use the Mist Energy, which would deny the secondary effect of Sob.
It's a really important inclusion in the deck. You're not necessarily thinking about the Corner or the Sob. Sometimes that comes into your thinking, but a lot of the reason why this card shows up is to protect yourself against Devolution and some Phantom Dive damage counter placement. Those are the core reasons why the card's in the deck, but in this case, Junior's got to be happy that he's got access to it. It's also changing how this game is going to end up playing out here. Who is so close. He can taste top 4. Still 14 minutes on the clock. Just one attack will win him the game at any point with this Charizard EX on the bench. Mateusz has no way of dealing with it. He has to try and just play around it for as long as possible. But didn't you take... Yeah, go on.
The confidence to just go for a Sob, knowing that that is the only out in this scenario. When you haven't seen a lot of Junior's deck, he could play a Professor Turo scenario. He could play a Switch card. There's so many cards that are available in many Charizard EX builds that could get you out of the scenario, but the Mist Energy on this occasion will be that option. It doesn't take effect right now, but next turn, if Mateusz were to attack into that Pidgeot EX, it would be able to retreat.
Mateusz, again, head in hands. He knows that his back is against the wall right now. Junior is inching closer to top 4. And is there anything in the deck that can change the fortunes? Buddy Buddy Poffin, first of all. Let's have a look at the entire deck. Is there anything left? Such a ruthless competitor is going to think of every tiny avenue at this stage to keep in the game. But is the missed energy one card too much here?
There is so many things to think about in this moment, and so many of them hard to think of when you're under this kind of pressure, unfamiliar with the scenario, having to navigate it, check all those options. And I do feel like Junior has presented too much for Mateusz at this stage. Bossing up that Charmeleon is great and all, but as soon as it evolves, it loses that secondary effect of the corner and would be able to retreat, or maybe even just attack itself. And the energy going to be coming down, and Mateusz presents the fist. Junior will be going through to the top 4 here in Anaheim at the World Championship, one step closer to becoming the world champion.
Phenomenal patient play from Junior in games 2 and 3. Had to overcome some awkward prize cards in game number 1 and game number 2, let's not forget, with that maximum belt being in the prize cards. But this combination of 3 Stage 2 Pokemon was too much for Mateusz's rogue build of Zoroark to handle.
An innovator in the game. Many of us in the European region are very familiar with Mateusz, not only for winning a regional, but for his innovation around decks like Banette EX and that Vikavolt Palkia back in the day. Always one to watch out for, and on this occasion will have a top 8 Worlds finish to his name. But Junior looking to try and increase that number, go all the way to the final with Charizard EX, another archetype we were not expecting to see do as well as it has here at the World Championship. Irvind has shown why it's so good throughout the tournament, and now another competitor taking it all the way.
This game number 1, Mateusz was strutting his stuff. He was given that window of opportunity with the lone Pidgey knockout and was so careful and decisive of where he was targeting down the board, locking up the space for Junior, who had to commit to a Charizard knockout a couple times over and was given nothing from Ino. Going into that game number 2 was a different situation though. Junior able to not only grab Pidgeot, but also